there was another game that occurred as well last night, and that was the Atlanta Hawks taking on the Miami Heat. And the Hawks, well, first and foremost, let's get into what all of the big news stories were for today on every single show. I saw this on Around the Horn. I saw Stephen A. Smith talking about it. On Monday, a report came out by Kevin O'Connor, the Ringer's Kevin O'Connor, that the Hawks GM and front office has the green light to look into making a trade that could involve Trae Young, their franchise player, this summer. First and foremost, I saw Kyle Kuzma tweet out, hey, it's crazy that the front office would leak this on the game, a playoff game, a play-in game. That was the narrative that the TNT broadcast of Chuck and Shaq and Kenny and all those guys saying, why would this come out on a national news day? Now, the Atlanta Hawks are the epitome of a mid or mediocre team, right? They don't get many, despite Turner being in Atlanta and based in Atlanta and NBA TV headquarters being in Atlanta. They don't get a lot of national TV games, but I'm from Atlanta. I live in Atlanta. I watch the Atlanta Hawks. I watch them all season. I kind of keep up with the team. I've been a fan, unfortunately, for a long time. Like I said, I kind of straddle a fence on that. But the story that Trae Young, that this franchise is going to trade Trae Young is ridiculous if you live in this city. Trae Young, the story has been all season that Trae Young and the owner, Tony Wrestler's son, Nick Wrestler, are very good friends. That it's a problem because he's friends with Trae Young. Trae Young, they need some more accountability. So maybe this is the guys, this is all being reported under the guys that the Hawks want to make Trae more accountable. Why would that story come out on a day that they are playing a play-in game, a game that they need to win? If the owner has put the creed out there that we want to be a playoff team, we want to make it, that's all they push for. They made the trade for DeJounte Murray, gave up the house for him. Why would this story come out? One thing I thought was, well, maybe Shams was one of the first people to report it. Shams has clutch ties, of course. Trae Young is a clutch client as well. So I started thinking, okay, I know the Hawks won't leak this because they have bent over backwards to give Trae Young everything he wants. So today of all days, when they get ready to play a play-in game, the biggest game of the year, they're trying to make the playoffs, they decide to say, hey, by the way, we may trade Trae Young in the offseason. That doesn't make sense to me. The other thing would be, okay, maybe this is Trae Young's people putting this out there and, kind of spinning it to say, hey, he's hedging his bets. If we don't win, man, I don't know if I want to be here, But the story was reported like this is Hawks management saying that we have the green light. Now, I subscribe to the Athletic, so I remember when the Quinn Snyder hiring happened after they fired Nate McMillan during the All-Star break. They brought in Quinn Snyder. The owner, Tony Wrestler, decided to do a sit-down because there was a lot of talk about the franchise just being kind of in disarray. I even said last episode, I picked the Hawks to lose just because they're so inconsistent and there's no stability there. And you never know which team you're going to get, unfortunately. But in this particular instance, they showed up and they kicked the butts of the Miami Heat. They were up by 24 points now. In true Hawks and Atlanta fan bases, this, in true Hawks and Atlanta sports team, period, fashion, they did allow them to come back. I think it got cut to as low as 5, but the Hawks bench was phenomenal and led by Jalen Johnson and Aneka Okongwu. I love both of those young guys. Sadiq Bey had a great game. Those guys are not a great game. He had a good game, and the Hawks killed him on the offensive boards. I think Clint Capella had 8 offensive rebounds, 21 rebounds, period, throughout the whole game. Like I said, they beat up the Heat. You start Max Strus at power forward or Jimmy Butler at power forward. Throw the ball to John Collins, man. The Hawks had more size, more athleticism. They did what they should have done. Now, they don't always do that, but they did that this night. So we got that out the way. Hawks handling their business, right? Before this game, and TNT was reporting this too, and it may have been reported somewhere else, but I saw when I'm watching the pregame, I guess Tony Wrestler and Landry Fields, GM, assistant GM, Kyle Korver, I think Nick Wrestler was probably at the game too. Looks like he was hugging his dad after the game. These guys take a private jet and they call Trae Young before the game and say, "Hey, Trae, none of this stuff is true." So it just makes me ponder, man. Like, I don't know if it's, well, I definitely know it's lazy reporting. And I won't even say reporting because Shaq, Chuck, those guys aren't reporters. Shams is an insider and a reporter. And like I said, at some point, I think we'll get the true story of what this is, because I don't think the Hawks want to trade Trae Young. I think they got Trae Young initially and drafted him because they felt like they know the fan base in Atlanta, and despite, unfortunately, a white superstar like Luka Doncic, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, that wasn't really gonna play well in Atlanta, because most of the time you got black folks in Atlanta that want to go watch these games. Now, the Hawks fans, when they went on a little run with the 60-win team, you had the fan mob up there, and it's very diverse at the game. So I won't say we only have black fans at those games, but a white superstar in this town, see Matt Ryan, see my other show, Cover 2, that I've been arguing with B. Woo for forever about this. That ain't gonna go over well with your constituency in Atlanta. Atlanta's a black city predominantly, man. The city part of the city and the folks who really root for these teams like that. UGA, they probably got, the other crowd, but the Hawks, the Falcons, those kind of teams, the Braves are kind of united. Everybody roots for the Braves, but Hawks in general, you'll have more black folks talking about them, man. So that's why Trae Young was brought here first and foremost. They wanted some excitement. Steph Curry is all the rage at this time. We were drafting this guy. We want some threes. He led the NCAA in scoring and assists, and he's done that in the NBA too. So he's lived up to the excitement bill. You get that moment where he's in Madison Square Garden and he's bowing and he's shushing the crowd and all that stuff. Atlanta likes a lot of theatrics, so he fits that bill. Luka, as good as he is, that kind of dribble the ball, air out of the ball, and no athleticism, and he's white, like I just said. I don't know if y'all know that. News flash, that wasn't gonna work. So when you got media like, in Boston per se, or in Connecticut, New England area up there at ESPN, or even Fox Sports in LA, they don't have a pulse on what's going on in Atlanta. I do, because I live here. I rooted for the teams. I understand the fan base. I understand the ownership. I understand why they make, well, let's not say I know why they make decisions. I don't understand them sometimes, but I know what the decisions are based on sometimes. So it doesn't fit that the Hawks would be leaking this information. That's all I'm saying. It's lazy reporting, man. And I'm not saying Shams is a lazy reporter. I know he's an insider. I just want to know, and I'm going to be looking forward to kind of keeping an eye on, is this something like Clutch is kind of throwing out there to kind of, Rich Paul and Clutch, they kind of get what they want, man. So are they kind of setting that seed to say, hey, if this don't work, if Trae ain't really getting what he wants, I know Quinn Snyder's supposed to have a little bit more power now, I guess, or maybe the final say as far as some decisions are made. That's probably why he came on, is what most of the reports are. So it's just interesting, man. I think it remains to be seen what happens. Now, like I said, the Hawks win that game. They get the 7th seed. They will take on the Boston Celtics, and that'll start, I think, maybe Saturday. I'm not sure. I don't have looked at what the actual days of those games will be when the playoffs start. Playoffs start on Saturday, so Saturday and Sunday this weekend. But let's keep an eye on that. Hopefully there's no more talk about this trade stuff. And usually, because nobody watches the Hawks, they don't know anything about the players, anything like that, who's on the team. Or so they know Trae Young, though, and they know, Trae Young's an a-hole. So, this is a story angle we can go. They got to have some time to fill when they're doing these preview shows and stuff like that. So there you go. That's my take on it, man. That's my wrap up of the games for last night that occurred, the playing games. Again, in the East, you got the Bulls taking on the Raptors up in Toronto. And of course, like we said, the second game will be the New Orleans Pelicans. They're going to be hosting the OKC Thunder. So those two games will be going on. I'll give you guys a report on that and drop, and then we'll kind of go through. Well, I'm going to give you my playoff preview here as of yet right now. We'll go over the 1-8 matchups after we decide once we find out what happens tonight. But stay tuned, man. And thank you guys for listening. We got a playoff preview coming up after this.